Have you ever wondered if the struggles you face are echoes from a story older than this lifetime? Imagine carrying invisible weights across centuries of being, where each choice, each wound, and each silence leaves a trace that follows you into the present. At times it feels less like you are living freely and more like you are walking inside a script written long before you arrived. Many spend their lives asking in secret, have I broken free, or am I still bound to debts unseen? Karma is often mistaken as punishment, as though some cosmic hand is writing marks against us. But in truth, karma is not vengeance. It is the slow, patient unfolding of the soul's lessons. It is the wheel that turns lifetime after lifetime until what was left incomplete finds its resolution, until the burden becomes light and the story finally closes its circle. And so the question arises, how do you know when the wheel of karma has turned full circle? How do you recognize the subtle yet undeniable moment when the past loosens its grip? When you step not into repetition, but into a new order of being. Carl Jung's insights into shadow, fate, and individuation offer a profound key here. While many traditions speak of karma as a cosmic debt owed to unseen powers, Jung approached it psychologically, seeing it in the inherited patterns, the shadows we refuse, the unresolved energies passed down not only personally but also collectively. For Jung, karma does not live somewhere far away in the heavens, it lives within the unconscious. To pay it off is not a transaction, but an awakening, a moment when what was hidden is integrated, when life's repetitions are no longer driven by compulsion, but transformed into conscious choice. When karma is resolved, life takes on a different texture, not because the outer world has suddenly shifted, but because you have shifted. The wheel completes its turn, not in silence, but in transformation. And the 7 revelations that follow are not random. They are living evidence of individuation, of wholeness dawning, of karma dissolving into freedom. Sign number 1, peace with the past. To know you've paid off the weight of karma is to feel the soft release of the past no longer gripping your heart. The images of memory remain, yet they are like faded ink on old parchment, visible but no longer burning. Jung spoke of individuation as the process of reconciliation, the weaving together of shadow and light into wholeness. In this state, resentment has dissolved, not because the past was erased, but because it has been integrated. The why me no longer echoes through your nights, and the what if no longer steals your mornings. The past becomes part of your myth, a chapter you can hold without trembling. Shadow tension still lingers as faint outlines. Those moments of loss, betrayal, or failure do not vanish, but they lose their sting. They inform you without defining you. You know karma has balanced when you can walk through the corridors of memory and no longer feel trapped, when the faces of those who hurt you stir compassion rather than hatred, when your former mistakes appear as teachers instead of chains. The soul path unfolds with freedom. The past is no longer a prison, but a story you tell with grace. Sign number 2, relationships become harmonious, and when the past loosens its grip, the ripples reach outward into the sea of relationships. Jung observed that karma often plays itself out most vividly through others, through the projections we cast, the conflicts we repeat, and the mirrored wounds that call us to awaken. But once lessons are absorbed, the storm subsides. Relationships that once carried tension soften, and even difficult people lose their power to hook you into old patterns. Their words may still sting, but they do not pull you under. You become the stillness at the center of the wave. Harmony is not the absence of difference, but the absence of compulsion, the unconscious drive to repeat the same dramas again and again. Now, bonds begin to breathe freely, without hidden contracts or karmic debts. Love becomes less about need and more about recognition, less about filling a void and more about meeting from wholeness. This shift marks a profound release. The karmic lessons embedded in relationships have been completed. The soul, once entangled in endless cycles of conflict and projection, can now move in clarity and compassion. Harmony, then, is not luck. It is the unmistakable sign that the karmic story has been resolved. Sign number 3. Repetition ceases. Life once felt like a broken record, the same heartbreak replaying under different faces, the same betrayal echoing in new disguises, the same mistakes pulling you back into familiar sorrow. But suddenly, you notice the wheel has stopped turning. What once returned like a curse now releases its grip. Jung called this the end of the unconscious repetition compulsion, the invisible drive to repeat old wounds until they are finally brought into the light. When you integrate the lesson, the cycle dissolves. The shadow that once tricked you into walking the same dark corridors no longer has power over you because you now see the trap before you step into it. Where you once attracted chaos, you now attract clarity. Where you once begged for closure, you now embody it. The déjà vu suffering ends, not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is not escape but transformation, an inner shift that ripples into your outer life. You no longer need the same teacher to arrive in a new form. You have passed the test, and as you move forward, free of the loop, something unexpected emerges. Sign number 4. Compassion flows naturally. From the ashes of repetition comes a new spring, compassion that wells up unforced, like water flowing where it once could not. When you are no longer bound by the cycles of projection, Jung reminds us, compassion arises as a natural byproduct of integration. The shadow you once despised in others, you now recognize within yourself, and this recognition softens judgment into understanding. Instead of condemning, you see with new eyes, there but for the grace of God, go I. The harsh edge of blame dulls, replaced with a quiet knowing that everyone is fighting invisible battles. This is not weakness but strength, for compassion born from experience carries weight. Karma dissolves into grace when your first impulse is empathy, not because you have been made naive, but because you are no longer ruled by bitterness. You can witness cruelty and still choose kindness, not as performance, but as truth. Compassion flows because your heart is no longer barricaded by old scars. It knows the terrain of pain and honors it in others. And in this way, what once chained you to suffering becomes the very force that sets you free. Sign number 5. Synchronicity guides you. When karmic weight loosens its grip, life begins to speak in patterns. A door opens precisely when you arrive. A chance encounter carries the message you were secretly waiting for. And events that once felt random now shimmer with hidden design. Jung called this synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence that reveals a deeper order between psyche and cosmos. To live under its guidance is not to control the world, but to recognize when the world is whispering back. Without karmic knots binding your steps, destiny flows with less resistance. You no longer wrestle endlessly with delays or blocks. Instead, you notice the subtle alignments that draw you toward the right places and people. The river of life no longer pushes against you, but carries you gently forward, as if the unseen hand of time itself is nudging you along the path. It is not about everything being perfect, but about knowing that the unfolding of events mirrors your inner clarity. You are not left guessing whether you belong where you are, because synchronicity reassures you that you are moving in rhythm with the whole. This is the psyche's way of saying, the karmic cycles that once held you back have run their course. You are free to walk with the current rather than against it. Sign number 6. Lightness of being. From this rhythm comes a sensation that is less intellectual and more embodied, the unmistakable lightness of being. The soul that once carried invisible stones of regret, resentment, or guilt now feels unburdened, like a traveler who has finally set down an ancient pack. Jung observed that neurosis often grows from unfinished business within the psyche, unresolved threads that loop endlessly. But when karma is reconciled, when debts of the heart and spirit are balanced, the psyche reclaims its vitality. You may still face challenges, but they no longer weigh you down with the heaviness of old echoes. There is effort, yes, but without despair. Suffering may still appear, but without the poison of repetition. It is as though the air itself has become more breathable, more generous, more filled with possibility. This lightness does not mean you escape the storms of life. Rather, it means you are no longer chained to them. Your steps are freer, your laughter more natural, your very presence less entangled. The soul that has paid its dues walks through the world with a serenity that is difficult to shatter, even when outer events would suggest otherwise. This is the quiet radiance of release, the silent proof that karmic burdens no longer cling. Sign number 7, freedom to create. And finally, from that serenity rises the most sacred gift of all, the freedom to create. No longer bound by cycles of repayment, your energy is no longer consumed by balancing debts or repairing past wounds. It is liberated, redirected toward expression, imagination, and the act of building. The archetypal image here is the artist with brush in hand, the builder with vision alive in stone and wood, the dreamer who dares to give shape to the unseen. Jung taught that the self seeks wholeness, and one of its purest expressions is creation itself, the act of bringing forth something that did not exist before. Old guilt no longer silences your voice. Old shame no longer locks your hands. What you create may not be art in the literal sense. It may be a relationship, a garden, a community, or a life path that carries your essence into the world. This freedom is the opposite of compulsion. You are not driven by lack, by hunger, by karmic debt. You are moved by abundance, by the joy of participation in the ongoing work of existence. To be free to create is to become a vessel for divine creativity, a participant in the unfolding mystery rather than a captive of the past. And it is in this creation that karma transforms from burden to blessing, from cycle to song. These 7 signs weave together like threads of a single tapestry: peace, harmony, release, compassion, synchronicity, lightness, and creativity. They are not random occurrences, but movements of the soul as it remembers its wholeness. Jung reminds us that paying off karma is not about perfection, but about individuation, the courageous journey of becoming whole, of integrating both shadow and light. To live this truth is not to withdraw from life, but to embody it, through awareness in each breath, compassion in each interaction, and creation in each step forward. And the very fact that you are listening to these words reveals something profound, that your soul already longs for this liberation, that it is already closer than you realize. If these signs stir even a faint recognition within you, perhaps your karmic balance is nearing its close. Remember, do not look outside for proof. No teacher, no oracle, no circumstance can tell you more than the quiet resonance already alive within you. That feeling itself is the truest confirmation. And so I leave you with a question. What if your very presence here means your soul has already broken free from the cycle, already standing in the dawn of a new beginning? This is Echoes of Psyche, where the wisdom within speaks.